This video contains or may contain spoilers for Hollow Knight. When the Pale King was trying to find a way to stop the radiance from spreading the infection, he tried to create perfectly hollow beings in the vessels. But what exactly does hollow mean in this context? And how well did any of the vessels truly fit that definition? I'll be discussing my thoughts in this video. First, let's look at the term hollow. Normally, the word just means having nothing inside. But in the case of the vessels, is this nothing truly a vacuum of empty space, or does it refer to void? Void is described and represented as darkness and shadow, but also as emptiness itself given substance. So the vessels do have something inside them, but since that something is void, it's as if they are instead empty and therefore hollow. Next, let's look at the Pale King's dialogue from the birthplace memory, one line at a time. The first phrase he uses to describe the vessels, or at least what they ideally would be, is "no mind to think." But what does it really mean to have no mind or not to think at all? For the Pale King's plan to work, the vessel would need to have some semblance of a mind in order to contain the radiance because she exists in the dream realm, which can generally only be accessed through one's mind. Perhaps he meant that they would have something like a mind, but they would have no thoughts or imagination. Their minds can create dreams though, such as the Hollow Knights containing the radiance, the one in which lost kin is fought, and the knight's memory of first trying to escape the abyss. Next is no will to break. A will is a desire to do or not do something, or to be or not be a certain way. When the infection overtakes bugs, it makes them lose their will entirely, so they can only operate on instinct alone and have no control of their minds, having it all consumed by the radiance. The king wanted the vessels not to have a will that the radiance could break and therefore take advantage of. She would be inside of them, trying to influence them, but they would not have a will that could be manipulated in the first place. This might also mean that being the vessel to contain the radiance might be an uncomfortable experience, but the vessel would not be aware of this nor have any desire to make it stop. Then, no voice to cry suffering. The king seemingly believed that since the vessels couldn't feel anything to begin with, there would be no reason for them to have a way of outwardly expressing that feeling, at least vocally. When the void seeped into the shells of the vessels before they were born, it may have removed or replaced any natural ability to be vocal that they would have otherwise had. The absence of sound is just another manifestation of their emptiness. It is odd, however, that the king would specifically mention cry suffering if the vessels couldn't experience suffering at all. Maybe that part of the expression had to do with his own guilt. Everything he would put the vessels through, from seeing them fall to their deaths attempting to escape the abyss, to sealing away the pure vessel, would be cruel, and he would not want to be aware of the effects of that cruelty. Finally, born of God and void. The first part is in the literal sense. The vessels are the biological offspring of the Pale King and White Lady who reproduced naturally in order to bring them into existence. God refers to their status as higher beings. Void being juxtaposed in such a way implies that the void inside the vessels is just as crucial to their existence and nature as being natural offspring is. The void made them what they are. It made such empty beings possible. So now let's put all of that to the test. Are the vessels really hollow, as in having no thoughts or feelings, and unable to experience anything like desire or discomfort? Well, a lot of evidence points to the answer being no. For one thing, the vessels are able to make choices, which requires some amount of mental processing. In the birthplace memory, the Hollow Knight notices the night and is aware of the situation as well as what they could do, and they deliberately choose to turn away and not intervene. That could be seen as evidence that they have no feelings, since they would have supposedly not helped the knight out of a lack of empathy, but it definitely means that they are self-aware and capable of making decisions. The vessels also seem able to recognize themselves and others like them. This is evidenced by the broken vessel reaching out to the knight upon defeat. The fact that they did this means that they are aware of what they are and that the knight is related to them. They were probably trying to express a want of help or a gesture of affection or acknowledgement. They have something that they want to communicate somehow. It does happen when they appear to no longer have void inside their shell, as to supposedly have their element of emptiness removed, but they never were and never will be a being that exists without void as an inherent part of their nature. Then there's everything that the knight does. They are mostly controlled by the player, but the player is not an element or being that exists within the game's universe, and so the player acts as, and therefore is, the knight. The player isn't making decisions for the knight, but as the knight. The knight also does things when the player is not controlling them, such as returning to Hallownest in the opening cutscene and filling out the map whenever they sit at a bench. Them returning to Hallownest was not like a robot responding to a command. They willingly did so because they made that decision for themselves. They were aware that something was calling them back into Hallownest, and they chose to act on it. I also want to examine why the Hollow Knight was unable to be a perfectly empty vessel to contain the radiance. Everything I've discussed so far suggests that no vessel could be truly hollow, but theirs is a special case. The memory behind the Path of Pain says it all. Some kind of idea or feeling was put into them, unable to be removed. The moment when this supposedly happens is the Pale King and the young vessel looking one another in the eyes. I think the way this affected the vessel follows the same principle as the broken vessel reaching out to another of their kind. The vessel was made aware that they and their father have a relationship, something in common with one another. This could have been what made them realize that they're not just an empty vessel, they're a living being capable of doing things for themselves just like their father is. This moment may have also formed a bond between the two, even if the king would have thought such a thing impossible on the vessel's side of things. They not only knew what their father expected of them as a vessel, but they also cared for their father and knew that they were cared for in turn. This would create an inherent desire to fulfill their father's wishes by being a perfectly hollow vessel, which they were by now already incapable of doing, and the Radiants took advantage of that in order to infect them from within. So in conclusion, the vessels are not hollow as in not capable of having their own awareness, thoughts, feelings, and ability to make choices. What do you think of my reasoning? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please be sure to give it a like, share it, check out my other Hollow Knight videos, and subscribe to my channel for more. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.